these two assemblies that we tried out, and what are the pitfalls for that. In this process of doing assembly, we have generated 5 assembly versions, as it was like PSOG also. So intermediate, this was the first one which was published in 2006, about a decade back, and it had 65 MB genome. But what was bad about this assembly was it has 12 MB as gaps, and the coverage was also quite less. And in between, in this year, we have assembled it 4 times, and we plan to freeze on this one, which was released in April 2016, and it is actually a nice one because we have been able to close most of the gaps here. And although we could not gain significantly in terms of genic area, but we could get a lot of repeats covered. So this is a protocol. This is a 3-way protocol for error correction. In last 1.5 years back, we got this data from Takau's lab, and that time we got a lot of errors in this PacBio reads. So that is one of the drawbacks of using PacBio data. And if you start using, there are 2 tools which are widely used by the community. One is EC Tools, and the other one is PBCR, that is PacBio to Celera Assembler, which does a auto correction of the reads using several algorithms de novo. So we tried using EC Tools, but EC Tools takes a reference genome. So in this case, our reference genome was nothing but the V1 assembly that we had, but it does not take the gap, so you have to break down the genome into context, that is called as unitics. So we used the unitics for correcting these reads, and we could only correct 33% of the reads, and which was quite less, and that was quite disappointing for us. So the last assembly we did, which was released I think in September last year, that used only 33% of the reads. Then we were wondering if we could change anything about the 67% we have it here. So we thought if we could change anything with the reference assembly that we have, reference data we have. So we generated a mock assembly using the Illumina rates, and then we simulated some med pair data, simulated med pair reads from the unitics from here at this insert size 6K and 20K, and did a all paths assembly for this data. And this assembly was provided as a reference to EC Tools, and this way, as you can see, we are also quite disappointed because the number of reads corrected were also very less, that is about 0.49. Now, so it leaves us with only this many reads that we are actually to throw away. Then we devised a unique way to incorporate the inbuilt mechanism of PacBio Celera Assembler along with EC Tools, if we can correct some more. So what we did was, we used PBCR auto error correction of this PacBio reads, and we generated an assembly from that, and that assembly was provided as an input to this EC Tools. So as a result of which our number of reads that were corrected were significantly improved. So we got about 13.2%. So now we are happy that we could get about 50% of the reads corrected. So after that, how many ever methods we tried, we could not get any more reads corrected. So this was optimal for us, and we proceeded with this data for our hybrid assembly. Before I get into the details about the assembly, I want to discuss few tools that we have used along with the assemblers that we have. As we know that when you read a paper, you get to see that people have assembled using a de novo assembler. But that is, if you just use the de novo assembler, you will get very disappointed with the results. So you need to do a lot of scaffolding afterwards and use multiple tools. And with PacBio and this hybrid data, we could manage to use some of the tools that I have already discussed about EC Tools and PBCR. And Canu is a new assembler which is a successor of PBCR, and it is known to be performing better. It's quite new, it came out I think early this year. And apart from that, there are few scaffolders which are also getting very good reviews, that is S-Space and S-Space long reads. You can use them in combination with the de novo assembly that you have, and it can take a asserted data type for doing scaffolding later on, which you can you can improve upon for with your assembly. And in addition to that, one thing to think about is if you want to deduplicate your sequences, that is if you have PCR duplicates, since we are not going for gene expression analysis, so it doesn't hurt if you remove the reads which are actually duplicates of each other. So we have used dedupe quite successfully to reduce our compute time. And this is a new assembler which came out recently, very recently actually. So it is specifically designed for the heterozygous genomes, and since P. ramorum is one of the examples, we thought we should try using it with P. ramorum. Yeah, I'm sorry about this slide because I could not do any animation. My computer refused to cooperate. So just try seeing column by column. So these are three assembly that we have generated just before we had this final version. So you can see it is self-explanatory how the reads are coming out of it. So in V2 that was released in September, we used only this 33% of the error corrected reads that I talked about in my previous slides, and then we did a series of corrections, inputs and outputs from different steps, and then we also incorporated Illumina rates at this stage so that we could get something better. So it was quite a nice assembly. As you can see, there are 1000 scaffolds, about 1000 scaffolds, and the largest scaffold is also quite big. And the total length is about 79 MB, but the number of gaps are also quite huge, so we could not use it, and most importantly because it had only 33% of the error corrected reads. So subsequently we followed two other protocols, and this one with Kanu, which is replacement of PBCR, and this gave us also a very nice result. As you can see, the total number of scaffolds are about 920, and but the genome size was way reduced. So maybe because it has thrown away a lot of reads or a lot of sequences in between, so we could not use that either. So this is our final assembly that we have used for this recent one, and these are the input data types. This is quite straightforward. You have Illumina libraries R1 and R2, and we have done something different where the unit ticks that were generated from the V1 assembly, we have simulated reads, med pair reads computationally at 20K insert size, and this many reads were produced with this average length. And the packed bio-corrected reads are also simulated to produce 10K and 6K med pair libraries with these sizes, and also V1 unit ticks were also added to this dataset for assembly. And then finally what we did, after we got this assembly, we compared it with the V1 assembly. And after comparing, we saw that there are few scaffolds in V1 that is not falling into this assembly. And we looked at those scaffolds manually and found out that 2 or 3 scaffolds were there which had genes and the others were actually not so good. So we had thrown them away, and the scaffolds that had genes, we did a cap3 to merge it back with this to produce this final assembly, which has about 2005 scaffolds. And here you can see the most important aspect is we have closed almost all the gaps, and it has only 220 bases as gap, which is quite remarkable. This is the statistics, this is the genome size, and I think this is our final version, which is somewhere which is quite, I think, quite falling on the size of genome size of Phytophthora ramorum, and the others V1 and V2 are slightly larger. And V2 assembly looks pretty good, but it has less number of error corrected reads. And here the gaps are almost not there, and this was the V1 assembly which has 12 MB gaps, and the others had gaps but they have not completely closed down. And the number of scaffolds were good here, but the genome size was less. Similarly here we had a problem of not including most of the error corrected reads. This is the gap filling statistics. V1, we have closed down this much of gap altogether, and this part is actually the false gaps. When you have unitics joined together and having some gaps in between, and we found that they are actually not gaps, they are end of the scaffolds, so they fell apart. We had to throw them away, and then there is this part is some misassembly which were there in V1, which we corrected in this current assembly. And there is a way to evaluate your assembly, and that tool is called as QAST. But QAST is slightly biased towards the size parameter. As you can see, this is the V1 assembly, so it gives a lot of blue here, saying that this is a good assembly, but it doesn't talk much about the gaps here. But so this is our assembly where although there is not a lot of blue, but we still accept it because the largest scaffold is not that big, but all the scaffolds are long enough for us to actually carry out, find out most of the genes. And here this is the interesting result. We tried to predict genes in all of these assembly versions, and we saw the number of genes are actually quite a lot in version 5. And what we did was map all of these genes back to the other 4 assemblies. So this is how it is done. For V1 we have this many number of genes, and we map this number of genes to all of the genomes, and you can find in terms of gene contents, most of the scaffolds are actually comparable to each other. So they have not lost anything in terms of gene content, but what was gained here was in terms of repetitive and intergenic regions. And this is the statistics about the number of genes, and the average gene length doesn't change here. And probably you have noticed that in Phytophthora or Omycetes there are large genes which codes for possibly for a dining complex, and this is quite large actually. And you'd see it there in all of these Omycetes species, which is about 30K to 45K. And this is a comparison of the repetitive regions that we have got. So it is actually directly proportional to the genome size. Here you see the genome size was large, so you got a large number of repeats. But here I think although the genome size is compact, we have captured a lot of repetitive regions, which is much more than the V1 here. And this is the sigma output results. As I said earlier, that in terms of genes, we have not got gained much with this assembly because sigma out of 458 partially conserved sigmas, 414 was present in V5, and the numbers are quite similar to each other, except that V5 had just 1 gene extra and V4 had 1 gene, and so on. Coming to the annotation of the genes which were extra in each of these, so some V2 codes for something like tRNA synthase, isoleucine tRNA synthase, and the remaining are energy dependent, and this is of course the helicase here. And completeness of the genomes, this is slightly higher, 95.97%, where out of the 4 conserved 248 sigmas, we have about 238. And like anybody else, we also did a effective prediction from here, and we got about 343 sequences. And this is the second assembly, ND886. Although we don't have a lot of good data to show, but we followed all the protocols possibly, but the genome size was quite large, so we are trying to figure out why it is something like that. So in one go, we could correct about 70%, 70.9% of the factor reads, and that was directly used for assembly. And this is the pipeline. Here these are the input data types. Here also we have simulated all this metpair data so that we could close most of the gaps. And this is the statistics. Although the number of gaps are much less, evaluating our assembly because we wanted to, the objective of using PacBio was to close all the gaps. Although this genome size is a huge 92 MB, we are still working on it. And but coming to the completeness of the genome, it is comparable. It is about 94.35% of the conserved genes are present here. And this is a comparison between the earlier G1 assembly with our ND886 assembly. So you can see the differences lie with the much smaller scaffolds, which are actually part of larger scaffolds. So it doesn't actually make much of a sense. So the final take-home message from here is de novo assemblers alone cannot be relied for a good genome assembly. And PacBio reads, if you are trying to use, be aware that they have a lot of errors in the reads, and correcting those errors is the key for you to get the optimal assembly. And hybrid assembly is required for doing any kind of assembly. You have to do a scaffolder, which may take several steps, and no single protocol will work for two different genomes. So for one genome, if it is working, it may not work for the other. So assembly improvement does not necessarily change the gene space. So you may have got some repetitive and non-coordinations. With this, I would like to thank our collaborators and my funding agency, Department of Biotechnology and Council of Scientific and Industrial Research for funding my research, and also my student modules fellowship comes from the Department of Science and Technology. And this is my team. So thank you for listening to my talk, and I'm now ready to take your questions.
Now it works, sorry. Congratulations on your nice genome assembly. It looks pretty impressive. I was just wondering, like, if you now know how big your genome is, you also know how much PacBio corrected reproduced. What was the average coverage of the genome concerning PacBio?
We know the genome size. It's about, I think, 70 MB.
So if you divide it by the amount of corrected PacBio, what is the average coverage then?
Pardon me, I can't hear you.
If you divide it by the average data of the PacBio, what is the coverage? That's like 15 times, 20 times.
Yeah, I think for PR102 it was 25x for PacBio, and for ND886 it was 50x.
Yeah.
Error corrected reads.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have kind of a follow-up question. Did you find that your coverage ratio between PacBio and Illumina was sufficient, or do you think that 25x to 10x could be modified to create more optimal
Yeah,
assembly?
here the thing is we already had one assembly where we had the contigs, good quality contigs from Sanger. So that we could directly use for error correction as well as, so that adds to the coverage, if you look at that. Yeah.
Alright, let's share the part out or move on to the next one.